Daniele Tonella, I'm the group CTO at ING. I joined a bit less than a year ago. We are a very entrepreneurial bank, the bank that wants to go very fast. But in tech, if you go too fast without thinking to the long term, you end up building up technical debt and building up future issues, right? So I'm the one that has to orchestrate a bit the trade-off between short and long term. AI has been there for a while. Now Gen AI has been accelerating a lot of the interest in the area. And ING has been very proactive in both adopting the technology, but doing it in a smart way. If I look, for example, at engineering, there is this hype that AI is coding faster than coders. If I look at what our engineers do the whole day long, is not just churning out code. And where we see AI really helping them is to reduce what we call the cognitive load. You have to imagine at our level of size, complexity, and history, an engineer that has to touch something has to take in account a lot of information in the context. AI is helping accelerating that context analysis, hence making engineers essentially save time through the work that they are doing. This is one of the cases where we see value. We see value in call centers, right, where the deflection rate, i.e. the amount of clients that do not need to reach a human to have their request or issue solved. So we keep seeing value in improving the customer experience and essentially becoming more efficient, but not just more efficient in cost terms. It allows us to focus our best people on really interesting work and not just menial activities, because AI is taking that away. Today we call everything cloud, that's why it's no longer a subject. But cloud has been misunderstood for a while as a sourcing strategy. So if it's not inside, it's in the cloud, it's somebody else doing it. So of course, public cloud has been a help in that space, but we also create a very large private cloud that is essentially doing exactly the same thing that we can expect from public cloud in terms of allowing to architect and engineer and deploy in a modern way. Then when you go higher in the stack, so not infrastructure, but you go towards software as a service, their cloud, of course, has made a difference, but less because of the technical functionality per se, but by the fact that businesses, including ours, have been accepting in an easier way to standardize on some processes and features. If you take CRM systems or workflow management systems or HR management platforms, they tend to have a very simple out-of-the-box type of service, and most of the times that is enough. So in that space, cloud has been a profound driver of standardization. So everything we tried to do with our own build platforms before has been just modernized through software as a service. So that is the big thing that cloud has brought in. At ING, cloud is a core pillar of the transformation from multiple axes. The company has started already many years ago to migrate away from our monolithic mainframe systems, re-architecting the application around microservices, a heavy modularization of functions, and global platforms and services. So that has created the laying ground for more agility, for DevOps at scale, for platform engineering, for all the elements that we are building today. Was that cloud? In a way, that was cloud. It was an enabler for a modernization of the way we engineer systems. Look, if you look at the macro evolution around, I would say, the relation between software development and infrastructure, it was at the beginning, when mainframes, the scarce resource was infrastructure and everything was subordinate to what the machine could do and should do. Then we went into heavily client-server architectures and eventually cloud, and that created a lot of freedom to developers to develop their kit and stuff. And infra tried to mimic a bit the rules that we had in the mainframe space to protect reliability, stability, control, and everything else. For some companies, DevOps has been a sort of freedom from infrastructure, I say it a bit harshly probably, because it was a dev-centric DevOps, meaning me dev, I no longer need to have an infra team somewhere, I'll do my own ops. That journey is coming to an end. If I look at ING, we have a couple of thousand tribes. We went agile very early on, and every tribe used to have a lot of freedom in designing the whole stack. Now, if you get a couple of thousand tribes, each of them with a lot of freedom, with a dev-centric DevOps, you end up creating complexity that just keeps growing, because we are engineers. If you get 3 engineers in a room, you get 4 opinions. Platform engineering is a part of the answer, but that requires a number of changes. The first one is platform engineering requires an ops-centric DevOps. in my pecking order, the quality of operations has the highest level. And then is everything which is developer related. When you turn the logic in that space, then you can enforce pipelines that become more opinionated, right? So you commit code is not just because I'm a dev that has designed my pipeline, it hits production. I'm a dev, the pipeline is designed by platform, and if I don't comply with some of the controls, it just comes back to me. It's like when you used to compile code, if there was a syntax error, you can compile as many times as you want. You don't get, something you can use. So that change in the culture inside tech is what the platform engineering is enabling, and cloud is now being an enabler for that story. That requires a huge culture change because it means we are moving away from the full stack engineer. Remember the dream of the super engineer does everything from the front to bare metal, and we are moving to a specialization of engineers. You could also say there are three families of engineers, right? There are the ones that do business features, right? They really are focused on client impact. There are the ones that build the components for the first ones to glue together and get services, and then there are the ones that manage the platform as such, right? If you take, somebody was saying culture is the operating system of a team. Well, then platform engineering is the kernel. So it's the part which is exactly behind your culture, and that allows to master the dilemma of high speed, high agility with complexity that otherwise just grows. Even when you buy, you have to build. Because you buy something, you have to integrate into your ecosystem, and those integrations are built in a way. The movement towards cloud implies also a movement towards everything as code, right? And we tended to consider the glueware something that is not really code, right? Now, if you go into a modern cloud platform, glueware is code. Documents are code. Pipelines are code. Everything is code. So the build versus buy is an old sourcing logic in the sense I should stop building, I should buying because it's more efficient. And you could say it's build, buy, and rent. Look, automation is embedded compliance at the end of the day. The moment you have automation, you can force compliance, because if you're not compliant, you're just not hitting production. And on the other side, when everything is automated, you can track compliance in sort of risk as code or risk telemetry, right? Because you can observe what is happening in production, and you can derive your compliance or non-compliance and your risk profile. But now to get there, you really need to have a culture of everything as code. Then there is a chance. That requires, by the way, not just the technology platforms below, but it requires a different conversation with the various functions. We are not in a sort of, here is a template, tick the boxes and send me a template type of interaction, but we're an interaction where we show metrics and we get opinion on metrics, which is a completely different level of measuring. In that case, risk applies the same for compliance. We are seeking for talent that is not obsessed with toys, right? Because the risk with engineers is that they believe I'm joining a very large, extremely technology-focused company, means I can come in and explore my creativity with whatever the market is giving in terms of cool technologies. That's not the profile we are seeking for. We are seeking for engineers that have large experience in understanding what the limits of technology are, that have a big amount of creativity and willingness to solve complex problems, and that are willing also to limit their own leeway in order to synchronize with a larger platform. Now, there is a challenge, of course, that is a part of being a technology company with a legacy, with a history, and with a size, but it's also one of the thrilling elements, right? Because if you just want to play with technology, there are plenty of other places where you can really go and go for toys. If you want to create a technology platform of the future that is really built to reduce complexity while business is exploding, then we are the right place to be.